All right. Hopefully y'all can hear me clear now. Clear. Come on. Hopefully y'all can hear me clear now. Clear. That is on there? Come on. All right. That is on there? All right. Okay, so we're just gonna wait for the room to go ahead on. All right, come on, room. All right, I know the people on Facebook is like, yo, what the hell? All right, come on, room. No, it's like, look, we grateful. You charging us for this? Okay. All right. I like that. All right, so y'all can hear us now. And I'm gonna share the screen. We're gonna get it back up.
We have sound.
Yep. All right. I'm glad of that. We're not gonna be long, but we will be strong. All right, that's if y'all know who that is, that's the general commander known as, well, y'all might not know that his name is Malik Rashidi. Y'all now know him as Khalid Muhammad, Dr. Khalid Muhammad. But that's what he used to say, will not be long, but we will be strong. All right. All right, so Queen said I got to start all over. So that's what I'm gonna have to do. All right. So let's get to it. All right. I had the brother from Facebook. All right, the god Amunhotep, Chavis El Bey. And he wrote this nice piece here about the castles and cathedral buildings is Gothic architecture. Gothic architecture is a Moorish Islamic type of building, according to Master Text, a dictionary of architecture and archaeology of the Middle Ages. For example, the BX, all right? Cathedral in France was built in 1077 during the Dark Age, right? When the Moors ruled medieval Europe. The cathedral was built with a Gothic Moorish Islamic type of building, and so is Westminster Abbey. And so he gives the link here. The link is to the book. Notice how in the link that you would see on the left side towards the bottom of the page, in Turner's Normandy, volume 2, page 250, or delineated several sculptural spandrels from Bayeux Cathedral, exhibiting somewhat of the Moorish or Tartarian mode of workmanship. The word is spelled squandry in the French contact for reforming Westminster Hall, dated 1393. The Dictionary of Architecture and Archaeology of the Middle Ages. Now, this is a powerful quote coming from a master text written by an Albion white author that is recognized. Well, it appears that the Moors built the castles and cathedrals throughout Europe. All right, so we know that for a fact that the Moors built the castles and cathedrals throughout Europe. That means they were not originally churches. Those was originally mosques. All right, He goes on to state that I'm so glad that Dr. Alim is doing a show on Gothic building, aka castle building, because our minds are stuck on basically just Egypt, the pyramids of Egypt. A lot of us have no idea that we built the great cathedrals and castles of the medieval Europe. Some of these cathedrals rival the pyramid. Some of the great cathedrals took over 100 years to build, and some weigh over 100 million tons of masonry. There are even acoustic chambers, sound chambers, because sound travels all around and is naturally amplified by its angles. The cathedrals have a natural built-in sound system due to the design of the angles, which made it acoustic. Very amazing achievement, because our people did not have any modern day power tools when they built them, and we can't reduplicate their art to this very day. Peace to all. Now, the book he's talking about is this book right here, The Dictionary of the Architecture and the Archaeology of the Middle Ages. This is by John Britton, John Lekeats, and George Godwin. Now, to one of our great scholars, scholar queens, Drusilla Houston, or Drusilla Dungy Houston. She wrote in her book, Wonderful Ethiopians of the Ancient Kushite Empire, and she drops it in there. What she says Bunsen concludes by saying Kushite colonies were all over the southern shores of Asia and Africa, and by the archaeological remains along the southern and eastern coast of Arabia. The name Kush was given to 4 great areas: Media, Persia, Susiana, and Aria, or the whole territory between Indus and Tigris in prehistoric times. In Africa, the Ethiopians, the Egyptians, the Libyans, the Canaanites, and the Phoenicians were all descendants of Ham. They were a black or dark-colored race and the pioneers of our civilization. They were emphatically the monument builders. Remember this now. They were emphatically the monument builders on the plains of Shinar, which is Sumer, in the valley of the Nile, from Meroe, which is where? In Abyssinia, Ethiopia. It was the capital at one time, to Memphis, which is Menkapata, which is in Kemet. In southern Arabia, they erected wonderful edifices. They were responsible for the monuments that dot southern Siberia and in America along the valley of the Mississippi down to Mexico. And in Peru, their images and monuments stands a voiceless witnesses. Now, hold up. She just told you that the shores, from the shores of Tripoli, which is Libya, because Tripoli is the capital of Libya, to Mexico, we build. She said that the same Kushites that was responsible for pyramids in Asia and Africa are also responsible for the monuments in America. Along the valley of Mississippi down to Mexico and in Peru, their images and monuments stands a voiceless witnesses. This was the ancient Kushite empire of Ethiopia that covered 3 worlds. So, of our later books recognize their indisputable influence in primitive culture, speak of them as a brunette brown race representing a mysterious Hellenistic culture. So here we have an example of the mummies that's been found in Mexico, Egypt, and Indonesia, which is Asia. The same 3 places that she says, Here you have the architecture of the pyramids as well as also of the temple structures. Coincidence? I think not. She just broke it down to you. If you haven't read Wonderful Ethiopians of the Ancient Kushite Empire, then you slipping. You need that in your library. The more science culture of the world, we're all connected. Here you have America. Uh-oh. Mexico. Libya. Africa. These become, all right, what we now refer to as these castles that we're going to get into. And they're, as she just told you, we built them in America, Mexico, which is America, the Pueblo, also in Libya, as well as in Africa, the Dogon, Timbuktu. She goes on to say that the Hindu Purashna speaks of the Kushites going to India before they went to Egypt, proving Hindu civilization coeval with that of the Chaldean and the country of the Nile. These ancient records or ancients record that the Egyptians was a colony drawn out from the Kusha Diwipa, and that the Pala, another colony that made the Phoenicians follow them to the land of Kush. In those primitive days, the central seat of Ethiopia was not the Meroe of our day, which is very ancient, but a kingdom that preceded it by many ages that was called Meru. So Meru was the central seat of Ethiopia at one time, which becomes called Meroe today. But it was once called Meroe, or Meru, as we call it. All right? Lenormand spoke of the first men of the ancient world as men of Meru. The men of Meru, or the Moor men. You want to see how we tie all this shit together. This is going to hit you. So she says that Lenormand spoke of the first men of the ancient world as the men of Meru. Sanskrit writers called Indras, chief god of the Hindu, king of Meru. He was deified and became the chief representative of the supreme being. Thus was primitive India settled by colonists from Ethiopia. Early writers say that there was very little difference. There was very little difference in the color and features of the people of the two countries. All right? So we're going to leave that right there. That's deep. But the point is what we're dealing with is Meru. So here we have the capital of Ethiopia was Meru. And it's still called Meroe today. And we have people in India, the king of India, or the chief god of the India, called the king of the Meru, was Idra. He was, all right? And here you have a scholar by the name of Lenormand, who spoke of the first men of the ancient world as the men of Meru. Here you have America. You go to Webster Universal Dictionary, 1937 edition, defines as American. What it says? An aboriginal of one of the various copper-colored natives found on the American continent by the descendants of the European settlers. The following is the original application of the name what? Meru. Oh, shit. Uh-oh. See, this is real scholarship here. Webster Universal Dictionary, 1937, says that America, original application, is the name Meru. So America is named after Meru, which is what? At one time, the central seat of Ethiopia. Oh shit now. This is why when I was speaking on last night, y'all should have heard me when I was talking about the Ethiopians, when they were saying that those who was here on the eastern seaboard, particularly in the southern eastern portion, look in North Carolina, look, when they came, the Europeans came, they said that the people here look no different than those of the Ethiopians. Hence the name Meru. So remember now, the first men of the ancient world, men of Meru, the men of Meru, Meru men, Moor men. So here you have the same exact stone patterns in which that we find in Egypt at Luxor or in Egypt at Giza, Easter Island, all right, Cusco, South America, Peru, Mexico, down into Sacsayhuaman, all right. Here we have one of the oldest castles. This is not in Europe. This is in Ethiopia. Gondor, Ethiopia. Fasil Jibi, Gondor, Ethiopia. This is Gondorshi in Somalia, right? An important city of the medieval Ajuran Empire. This is a castle that's on the hill near the waterside. This is in Egypt. Yes, this castle's in Egypt. This castle is in Egypt. This is Timbuktu. 18 universities, Timbuktu. This is one of the universities that still stand today. All right. Another castle in Africa. Another castle in Africa. Namibia, Southern Africa. Here it is. Called Dewis or Dewis, the Dewisit Castle. Right, this is ancient castles in Africa. All right. So that was in Africa. So let's get to Europe. And we know that you have African nobility, or what you call black nobility. All right. We know that for a fact. We have Leopold Habsburg. We know of the Habsburg Empire that was head of the Holy Roman Empire. We know all of that. You have the image of Maurice. All right. We have the great musical composers. You know, George T. Ferns. We have William the first, Prince of Orange. All right. So these are the black blood. All right. Or the image from the blue blood is black blood. All right. This is black blood. Yeah. No, they can't. Probably not. All right, there you go. All right. Now let me go back. Here we go. These are the castles in Africa. I just have to go back for the people. All right. All right, so these are actual castles built by Africans in Africa. Not no European coming over there and building no damn castle. Okay? Get that right. So the oldest castles are in Africa. Okay? That's what it is. The oldest castles are in Africa. All right, so get Rasta Live Wire. This says Elizabeth I began the race war against the Moors of England. This is by Anu. This is what he says. This is November the 15th, 2011. The Moors built the castles, the churches, and laid down the foundation of great cities and universities, upon which modern Europe is built. The Moors taught Europe science and literature, as well as the 7 arts of culture. All right? This correlates perfectly with what we've been talking about. So now we know that the oldest castles are in Africa. And then we went up into Europe as the Moors, meaning that we obviously came from the same bloodline as I showed you earlier, because the Moors are Ethiopians. All right? You had the goddamn capital called Meru or Moro. Okay? This is the science here. You got to pay attention. Get the book, The Moorish Empire, a historical epiphany by Budget Mekin. All right. And in the book, it goes to the chapter of Mauritania. And it says, by the native that remains are known as Kasar Faranan, which means Pharaoh Castle, Pharaoh's Castle. And at this time, they had been freely quarried, notably so by Muli Ishmael when built. Now, Muli Ishmael was he was the one who helped with the Treaty of Peace and Friendship of Morocco, or the Barbary treaties, during the time of George Washington when he was just a general. All right. Right here we have also in the book, Reign of Abdallah Mu'min. Right? It says here, to him who was due the building of let's see, check this out now. This is the Moorish Castle. Look at this. This is called the Moorish Castle. This is found in the book. Right? Gibraltar. This is in the book. So the building of Gibraltar, which he renamed in vain the mountain or the Mount of Victory. All right? Jebel el Fatah. Here his engineers erected the existing castle, now the military prison and the windmill, which he lent its name to a predominant site. In Africa, he found the new town of Talingsing, close to the old and a rebuilt Messines. All mosques, walls, and fortresses throughout his empire was by his order repaired. All right. While the aqueducts of Salih also dates from his reign. So, all right, according to El Makari, he had mustered 300,000 Arabs and Senata from his Algerian and Tushian province, and 180,000 Moorish volunteers. Obviously, this was in the building of the castle or repairing of the castle, which is called the Moorish Castle. All right. Also in the book, it goes further and it's talking about Ali, who's called Abul Hassan Salali, and assisted him in subduing Tabu Samit. That worthy made peace with the foe instead and quarreled at the Sharif and carried him off to his castle. Ilit in Su. All right. So they wasn't taking you to the house or to the prison. They was taking you back to your damn castle, back to your shit. The Barbary discoveries no less than a castle and several islands, presumably at Mogador, near Morocco and the Garden of Barbary, a good harbor where from English manufacturers maybe had wheat, barley, horses, camel or camels, saltpeter, beeswax, goat skins, dates, and ambergris, etc., which would save long voyages to India, supplying Tangier and the Carib Islands, secured our trades to the southward. Hold on, wait. So as you see here, the commercial intercourse for those that was in Morocco was dealing with those in the Carib Islands. Tangier, all right? Supply to Tangier and the Carib Islands, secure our trade to the southward, etc. But this Dorado was not for us, which was so soon after the abandonment or the abandoned, even mismanaged Tangier. So you know that the Moors, right? Because understand what we see right here. It says Elizabeth I began the race war against the Moors of England, excuse me. So we find that the Moors were also called the Danes and the Vikings. See, they have you thinking the Vikings come in with that damn hat on with them damn horns on their head and they Europeans in white with blonde hair and blue eyes. Wrong. That they enslaved and exact tribute from the European peasants and serf formers, called the Dangel or blackmail, the tribute of the Black Army. This is where blackmail comes from. That they were on both sides of the Atlantic, that the term Moor in Indian was interchangeably applied to them, that they were a maritime seafaring nation of people, that the Europeans rose up, assisted by other Moors, took the Moorish lands and enslaved them, exterminating them, and or put them on reservations. These Moors, also known as Danes, Vikings, Picts, etc., were regularly traveling back and forth across the Atlantic and doing import and export. Right, this is what we have to understand. As we just finished being verified here, but this is even much earlier. Europeans were used by the so-called Danish and Viking Moors as peasants, serfs to work for feudal estates of the noble class of Moors, who were also called or known as cavaliers. The European women were sold largely as concubines to fill the harems of rich and noble Moors. This is not something that the Moors should be proud of. It is that which ultimately led to the enslavement of the Moors by their former slaves and serfs. What goes around comes around. Get the book Golden Age of the Moors. The anthropologist Dana Reynolds, in an exhaustive and meticulously detailed essay, has attempted to trace the African roots of the original North African people. She cites a half a dozen Greek and Byzantine Neo-Roman writers from the 1st and the 6th century AD and described the Berbers population of North Africa as black-skinned. Among these writers are Metello, Silius, Italicus, Corippus, and Procopius. So the original black Berbers, who were called Moors, were the North African ancestors of the present-day dark brown and brown black people of the Sahara and the Sahel, mainly from those called Fulani, Tuareg, Zenaka, and the southern Morocco. Kunta. So see, Kunta wasn't just one Kunta from roots. A whole damn tribe was called Kunta. Tebu of the Silla countries, as well as other black Arabs now living in Mauritania and throughout the Silla. They include the Terrassa of Mauritania and Senegal and the Mahaba, as well as dozens of other Sudanese tribes, hence Nubians, Cushites, right, and the Chamba of Ghana, of Chad and Algeria. Apart from her very detailed studies of the origins and affiliations of the various tribes, she points out that the Africans involved in the Moorish occupation of Iberia did not just build remarkable things in Europe, but also in their native lands. They found and constructed many industrious and prosperous towns all over the north of Africa and as far south as Timbuktu. The ruins of their many, check this out, the ruins of their many castles can be seen as much in northern Africa as in Andalusia. Now, I didn't write this. You got to go to Ivan von Cinema, Dr. Ivan von Cinema. Of course, he's passed on now, but his words still remain true. This correlates perfectly with what we just been going through, what we've been studying, right? We put the pieces together. That's what we do here, right? My wife called me the connector. That's my nickname, right? We connecting the pieces here. Get the histories. Herodotus, he says this: Ethiopia is the western part of a great empire of India, all right? Or India actually is a great empire of Ethiopia, the eastern part. But here we have Penguin Classic, page 468, and Herodotus says that the Ethiopians in Hindustan, or Indians, or Hindu Kush, were people by the same extraordinary race, in confirmation of which it may be added that the mountaineers of Bengal and Bihar can hardly be distinguished as some of their features, particularly their lips and noses, from moderate Abyssinians, that's Ethiopians, whom the Arabs called the children of Cush. And the ancient Hindus, according to Strabo, differs in nothing from the African but in the straightness and smoothness of their hair, while that of the others are crisp and woolly, a difference proceeding chiefly, if not entirely, from the basically from the respective humidity and dryness of the atmospheres. This book, The Ethiopia and the Missing Link in African History, is by Reverend Sterling Means. He says, it seems Ethiopia is the missing link to African history. And he goes further and says that the Kushite nations extended from Spain to Syria. And this system was penetrated through Phoenicia, African Berber, which is North African tribes from Morocco, to Egypt. Okay, get this, the Merhabat period. Right, contemporaries of the Norman conquest of the Saracens in Sicily. Now the Saracens are the Moors, and out of the Angolus Saxon in southeastern England rose the Moorish Empire, and of which hitherto the foundation alone has been laid. Not one of the petty Berber states into which Morocco was then divided was able to take the lead or to coerce the others. It was not until the outside Kendra power came among them, and by one fierce onrush broke down the tribal barriers that it was possible to wield them into one. Such a power was the house of Tashfin, afterward called or known as the Merhabat, right? The Merhabat becomes Moabite, the Moors, the Moabites. That's real. We're not talking about the biblical name. Now we're talking about the actual historical name, Merhabat. All right, which is once again Moabite. All right, so here we have Early History of Scotland by J.C. Goodfellow, Hawick. He writes, thus it can be seen that the most ancient Aboriginal inhabitants of Britain and the surrounding islands were dark-skinned and woolly-haired, and were part of an Indo-European speaking people who inhabited the land from India to Britain. All right. Humphrey Higgins referred to the religion of Krishna. He says, the religion of the Negro god is found by the ruins of his temples and other circumstances, to have been spread all over an immense extent of the country, even to the remotest parts of Britain, and to have been professed by devotees inconceivably numerous. This is Anacalyptics from Humphrey Higgins, page 52. So when we find, is this true about these Aboriginal inhabitants of Britain and the surrounding islands, hence means Scotland and Ireland? Well, the Stone of Destiny has been revered for centuries as a holy relic fought over by nations and used successfully by the Druidic, Scottish, English, and British monarchs as an important part of their enthronement ceremony. It is transported to Ireland via Spain by Princess Merit-Aten, also known as Scotia, the daughter of Egypt Pharaoh Akhenaten, who fled Egypt around 1335 BC, following a rebellion in which Akhenaten was overthrown. And see, not only did they go into Britain, Scotland, and Ireland, they came over here to the Americas. You had the Amana, which was part of Akhenaten's people during the 18th dynastic period. You'll find their relics in the 18 temples in the Grand Canyon. Right? So when you hear of Queen Scotia or Scotia, that's talking about Scotland. And when we went to the British Museum, the curator of the museum, when my wife and I went in 2008, he told us, he said, because my wife was touching everything up in there. Every damn Egyptian piece she can get her hands on, she was touching. And even though the joint on the wall says, do not touch, and he was going around making sure nobody touch, he let my wife touch it. Because she said something very powerful. She said, it's been so long since I've seen and felt and touched my ancestors' relics. Exactly. And when he heard that, he just turned around and walked the fuck away.
And I wasn't even looking at him when I said had my eyes closed.
Because she was so busy touching the damn relic. All right. So he just turned around and walked away and came back about 5 minutes later and said, ma'am.
Really gonna love what we got on your ancestors.
He said, ma'am, if you really want to see what your ancestor got, you better go to Scotland. Okay. That's what he said. So next trip, Scotland.
They just don't want us to be mad at them. Because y'all, we was tearing them up. I saw a picture with a 4x4. The other ancestors, they was playing checkers and chess at the table, dressed to the nines. You hear me? And this brother was in the middle of the courtyard with a Caucasian on his knees with strangling hair. And he had a 4x6. It was big. About to beat him.
Now you said 4x4.
It was huge. I don't know what it was, but it was gigantic. Like, didn't nobody even care? They still was playing cards. And
playing checkers.
And chess. They was playing.
Yeah, they was playing chess. Yeah, they playing all that good stuff. Yeah.
So what you put out come back to you. They just want to make sure we ain't gonna be angry.
Yeah. Well, niggas gonna be angry now, but
they gonna be angry regardless.
But right, they're gonna be angry regardless. But anyway, we have Stonehenge, and of course, being that it's near England, you would think that, well, they built it. Well, no. Godfrey Higgins again in Anacalypsis. He says, in my essay of the Celtic Druids, I've shown that a great nation called Celtia, of whom the Druids were the priests, spread themselves almost over the whole earth and are to be traced in their rude, gigantic monuments from India to the extremity of Britain. Now, remember, this is the exact same spread of the Cushites, of the Celtics, of the Druids. So that means that the original Celtics and Druids were Ethiopian. Because this is the exact same extent from India to Britain. Check this out now, who these could have been of the early individuals of the Black nation, of whom we have been treating, I know not. And in this opinion, I am not singular. The learned Maurice said the Kuthites, which is the Cushites, i.e. the Celtics or Celts, built great temples in India and Britain and excavated the caves of the former. And the learned mathematician Reuben Burrow had no hesitation in pronouncing Stonehenge to be a temple of the black curly-haired Buddha. So the Celtic priest was also Buddhist? Or is Buddha a code name for Ptah, which is Egyptian? Which it is, because if you get Jeremiah's lectures, which is by Jeremiah, he tells you in there that the word Buddha comes from Ptah, or Buddha, or Ptah. So then the Druids and Druidists who had colleges in an island near the coast of Brittany, who profess a knowledge of the future, who were figured as bearded like goats, and who worshiped the gods, were dark-skinned, curly-haired Iberians of the tribe of Silurus and Damoni. They seem a fair inference. All right, so right here, at any rate, if the small, dark Highlanders. So remember, you had the TV show Highlanders back in the days? But goddamn, the real Highlanders were you and the Black Celts to the west of Shannon, but assumed to be the descendants of Iberian. It may fair be argued that with so much intermixing with fairer races during the last 2,000 years, the stock may now be light-skinned, all right, then. And it representatives of the first century must have been actually as black as Negroes. No, yeah. But they would have called us Negroes. As a matter of fact, Finley characterized their complexion as Ethiopian. And that is as black as Ethiopians. And it may be that the curliness of their hair was the same nature as the Negroes also. Thus, the Negrotoes of Hexley The owner of such skulls and those found in Clifness may have been allied with the ancient Iberians, that the wild tribes of Ireland were black men. Remember, I told you about the pygmies who was there, the small, dark Highlanders, who was the snakes, called the snakes, who was ran out of Ireland by St. Patrick. This is talking about the wild tribes of Ireland were black men is hinted by the fact that a wild Irish is Gaelic, a black Irishman. So yeah, you can do March 17th, wear green if you want. However, these black Irishmen got chased the hell out. All right, out of Ireland. You can get this from Ancient and Moderate Britons by David Ritichie, page 44, 45. See, this is what we're talking about, scholarship. All right, scholarship. All right. The light and truth collected from the Bible and ancient and moderate history, containing the universal history of the colored and the Indian race, from the creation of the world to the present time. This is R.B. Lewis, a colored man. And what he wrote, the Moorish Castle. This castle was taken from the Moors by the Spanish. It is now called, well, we called it the Gibraltar Castle, or by the name of the Spanish castle. That this castle is not very large, but it bears the marks of great age and has not in fact been open for several hundred years, even from the time it was first taken from the Moors. There are various and marvelous reasons told for keeping it closed. One reason was that the sentinel stations at the castle for 8 to 10 days in succession, when the relief guard came in the morning, was found dead on the rampart. And after 20 and 30 men had been there singly cut off from the Spanish ranks, it was resolved to search the castle. All right. So it says here, they marched with a file of soldiers to the castle gates and were just putting the key to the lock when some terrible disease called death of most of caused the death of more than one half of those who were actors in this enterprise. The Moors say that the reason this castle was not opened by the Spanish was that the plague was in it, right? The Jews, since their expulsion, had offered to cover the rock with silver dollars, laying them flatwise on the ground, provided that the rock would be given up to them. But the terms were not accepted. Yet, if they would cover it with the dollars edged down, it should be given up to them. This is what the Jews would not do. The Jews pretended to say that the Moorish castle contained inspired writings never yet published, and that they ne'er would be till they was published by the Jews. And see, this is what the Jews did. They went behind the Moors and got the information. This is how the Holy Kabbalah comes about. That is actually Moorish literature, Moorish writings. And the Jewish people come behind and takes this information and pass it off as if it's theirs, right? This is what they was doing. This is even in the book, right? So get a castle built by the Moors, taken by the Vikings and conquered by the King of Portugal. Well, we told you who the Vikings were, all right? So the Vikings were the same people. Here's the beautiful castle, right? Another image of it. Castles of the Moors, or Castelo dos Moros, was built in the 8th and 9th century by the North African Moors during the conquest of the Iberian Peninsula. Hence the name. The Moors chose a strategic military location high in the mountains over the river Tagus. Once it was complete, the castle was of great significance for the Moors and remains until the end of their rule. Right? This is just pictures of y'all can see right? Right. So if y'all want to see the pictures, definitely please go to Facebook. I mean YouTube. Right. Right. Thank you. All right. So the monarchs of Portugal continuously used the castle. However, it wasn't as important as it has been during the Moorish rule. The last king of Portugal believed to have used the castle was Fernando I. The monarchs kept the original Moorish architecture of the castle, but made small alterations. After the 14th century, it was neglected. For a small period, Jewish families lived in the castle, of course. However, it was once again abandoned after they was banished from the country. Because King Fernandez and Queen Isabella, they was living in a barn. This is the type of barn they was living in, a big red barn. What they was living in. King Fernandez and Queen Isabella. Right? They was living in a barn. Right? Not a castle, but a barn. Right? That's what they was in, a barn. So we lived in castles. All right? They lived in barns. So this is why they wanted to fight against us. So hence, the nobility, the royal nobility was cast off the throne. All right? And the last stronghold was Granada, Spain. All right? Granada, Spain. All right? And Queen Isabella, Queen Fernandez, as you heard here or see here, went up into, you know, these castles and these other places, you know, and took over. But yet they was in barns. They wasn't living in castles. We built the castles, as already been proven within the last half an hour. So please compare the two sets of photos. First in North America, 3 of Canada, Grand Railway Hotel, the Plaza Vigor Hotel of Montreal, 1890, and on top the Fairmont, and also you have what?
You said in the barn. I said, and I put a picture of a pig. I said with the animals.
Oh yeah. All right, yeah. Well, the chateau in Ottawa. Yo, I'm just telling you, yo, this shit is real. All right, go and look it up. This is, you know what I'm saying? This is real. I believe in Nutricide by Dr. Llaila Afrika, he talks about this, how they was in a barn. A big red barn like this, but it was no castle. It was none. It was nothing like this. It was nothing like this. This is what we built, and as you've seen, we built this all over the world. Right? We went through Africa. We're going through Europe now, and now we went through Europe, and now we're in North America. Okay, that means the United States and Canada and Mexico. We're in North America now. So, the chateau in Ottawa said to have been built between 1909 and 1912. Please note the fancy canal looking Ottawa River in the foreground. For more on this, please check out the Master Masons and Canals. All right, and you have to go and check out a lady by the name of Michelle Gibson. She is dropping information on your heritage. And she looks like a European, but her pineal gland got to be uncalcified. But she has no problem with dropping the information and teaching the truth. All right, so here you have the Chateau on Frontenac in Ottawa, and you have the Canada Railway built, you know what I'm saying, allegedly built these, right. This is what we was told. What we do know is that this really was built by you know who. Yeah. These were several foci from which that the Negro traders spread it in the two Americas. The eastern part of South America, where the Caribs are mentioned, seem to have been reached by them from the West Indies. Another stream possible for the same focus radiates in the north along road marks by the presence of mound builders and reach as far as Canada. So here it is. I'm showing you how the mound builders, all right, reach into Canada. So hence the reason for these castles that was built. The chief cultural influence was exerted by a Negro colony in Mexico, right? Most likely from Teotihuacan or Tuxtla, which is what? The Olmec, who may have been instrumental in establishing the city of Mexico, which they were, which is called Amexem. And from here, the influence pervaded the neighboring tribes, and ultimately directly or indirectly reached Peru. Here's the second set of in Europe for comparison. First is the Kessius castle in Poland, which was built by us, built between 1288 to 1292. And Middle Chateau de Chambord in France, in the Loire Valley, built between 1519 and 1597. And the Schloss, the Ruschenberg of the Rhine River near Bonn, Germany, said to have been built between 1882 and 1884. Now look at these and look at these. These are in North America. These are in Europe. Once again. Speaking of ruins, here are some very interesting examples in the United States. This ruin, known as the Bannerman Castle, is located in New York State on the Hudson River. A castle in New York, Hudson River. The next photo is also of castles at the Turner Falls State Park in Davis, Oklahoma. The first is a good view of the relatively intact castle. The second is signage saying that the castle was built in the early as 1930s. And the third photo is that of a stone structure of the grounds of the state park with a lot of missing stones. And here is a pretty good intact castle, which is in Oklahoma, called Turner's Falls Park. This is a castle of Louisiana, the heart of the Ouachita, Baton Rouge. Now check at the neat or the nice earthwork underneath the castle. In other words, it was built on top of a mound. Remember, who's the mound builders? Olmecs. The Olmecs are the mound builders. And they also are the master builders who built these mounds, pyramids, and cathedrals, the Moors. Here's presenting Beauregard Castle in Louisiana. This is in Louisiana, another castle. So we know that the Ouachita are directly related to the Olmecs. Hence, when we say that the mound builders, the Ouachita, are the mound builders, those are the Olmecs. They have on part descent of the Olmecs. So the Olmecs, we know, date back 1500 to 1000 BC. All right. And as you see here, this is a good representation here of who the Olmecs, how the Olmecs looks. There's no way that you can bypass the fact that this is a so-called Negro. And this is what I was talking about. This is a Moor of the Moorish. This is a Moorish emperor. This is Muli Said. There once was an all-black army known as the Divan or the Diwan. Right? It is this Divan that put emperors in power and took them down in Morocco. Right? This is the Moorish emir named General Bassa. Right? That's down at the bottom here. And the word admiral came from the Moorish word emir, which means commander or captain. I know it seems incredible that we never learned one bit of this in all our years in school or schooling. This is by design. The history of the illiterate, But the history of the illustrious Moorish nation has been hidden at all costs. Its secret lies hidden in deep Masonic grotto. We have so much more information to bring you in the upcoming issues, because this is coming from my good friend Fahim Bey, right? And he goes on and says, just be patient and follow us on the journey of truth through the journal of the Moorish paradigm. Each succeeding issue will build on the foundation being laid now. All right. Now, there's nothing new under the sun. Many think hockey is a new sport. All right. Which, we know it's not, but here we have the Moorish architecture. Some of the best Moorish architecture in the United States can be found in the form of Jewish synagogues. Of course. Because remember, we just showed you, we talked to you about the Jewish people in particular. Jewish, not the Jews, who is the black Jews, which are the real ones. But here in New York City, many of the very old dates from the late 1800s and early 1900s. Below is another synagogue that I found in Manhattan, New York. And it is the oldest synagogue in New York, built in the 1800s. On a plaque in the northeast corner, it says, built in Moorish revival style. So the Moorish style facade and the sanctuary of the synagogue, lit by stained glass windows on all four sides, are now being restored by the Eldridge Street Project. In 1886, watercolor drawing of Eldridge Street Synagogue complete the next year. This is the bottom, is the oldest operating Mormon temple in Utah. Utah? Please note that the earthwork that it is built upon, in other words, is built on top of a mound. You mound builders. And the Moorish style architecture of the building, including the towers, the onion domes, and the ornate styling. Look at it. This is the oldest operating Mormon temple in Utah. Well, who are the Mormons? Well, let's see. Mormon. It says right here, it's kind of hard to see, but shit, we're going to get through it. 1830, published 1830, Sacred Scriptures of the, right? Moored ship near the, in such a way, blah, 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 and twisting, and then, okay, here we go. Moorish, right? It says, of relating to the Moormen of India. So Moorish relates to the Moormen of India. Hence, you get Mormon. Right? You can actually look up Mormon or Moorman, and it actually says Mormon. All right, this is the trick. So the Mormons have stole your heritage. This is what we've been talking about with the indigenous theft of your history, culture, lineage, bloodline. heritage history. I think I said that. I'm going to say it again, goddammit. So this is what we find here. So the Mormons named themselves after you. So here you are saying that you're not a Moor, but Mormons don't have no problem with saying that they Moors. Matter of fact, that they Mormon. Because you don't want to be black or Moors any longer. But the Mormons have no problem with taking your place. And tell you that they got Islamic traditions and culture and customs, which they do. Because you don't want that shit. All right. So this is the problem that we see. This is tonight's lecture. I'm ending right here. All right. Any questions? Anything? Anybody got anything that they want to ask? If not, you know how we do. We say our joint. Nobody? All right, well let's do it.
Indigo Jones was the greatest architect in Europe, and he built many famous buildings there. He is a Moor depicted as an albino.
Say his name again.
Indigo Jones.
Indigo Jones, all right.
Indigo.
Oh, Indigo.
I-N-I-G-O Jones.
Okay, Indigo Jones, okay. All right.
And then they said maybe that's why some are quick to refer to morons as occultists.
Yeah.
Can you touch on the Olmec and the Easter Island connection? Oh, thank you so much for saying that. I don't know if that's a whole lecture or.
Yeah, well, I mean, I basically touched on it. I already touched on it. Basically, the Olmecs, or the Moors, they all come from out of Ethiopia. They're all part of the bloodline of the Cushites. And they went into England and they built those particular, okay. And they built Stonehenge, as well as other monolithic structures, megalithic structures, I should say, throughout Europe, Africa, and in the Americas and Asia. Based on what Drusilla Houston said, she said that through 4 worlds, in other words, through 4 countries, we went through the major countries in the world, you know, lands in the world, and built. All right, so, you know.
And the Easter Island part? Because can you touch on the Olmec and the Eastern Island connection?
Right. Well, the Olmecs, you had those who went into Asia, then they went into Australia, which was over 50,000 years ago, and they spread it out through the various islands. Easter Island was one of the islands that they spread it out into. So you had the Pacificers, who are called the Pacific Islanders, who are melanated. All right, they are melanated. All right. This is what we know, and of course you can get Anacalyptus, in which that goes into more details about this. All right. And matter of fact, you can do a whole lecture on it, you know, and I can show you the proof of that. It's real simple. But these were, once again, your forefathers and foremothers, because they tell you that we had a part of our ancestors that came from what we now refer to as the Pacific Islands / Australia. In fact, we was at one time called Australoids, or Aborigines, or Aboriginals, okay, because of our lineage or tie back to, you know, the indigenous people of Australia and within the island. right? So Easter Island, we know for sure, was built by us also. There's no doubt about it. As well as most megalithic structures in the world, the pyramids, the mounds, all right, Moorish churches and buildings, so forth and so on. We built these.
Johnny Boy's son super chatted, so did Fahim, and so did Isabella Montero.
Thank y'all for the super chats. Much respect, y'all. And Johnny Boy, you always doing your thing. My brother Fahim, you always doing your thing. And Isabel. Yeah, Isabel, you also doing your thing. Appreciate you. You commenting more and everything. So we really appreciate you too, got it.
And she even had a comment with her super chat. She said, thank you for the consistent stream of information and enlightening thought. Your work is not going unnoticed.
All right, work ain't going unnoticed. I appreciate that. You know, because normally what happens, yeah, it's good to be appreciated and, you know, respected, you know, because sometimes, you know.
Well, the algorithm say something else.
Right.
YouTube said, YouTube LLC said
peace. Peace.
Nymare Xi Kituwah I, can you explain how the Kushite Empire became the Ottoman Empire at that time? I know you were about to get off.
Yeah, well, when we refer to the Moors, the word Turk is also included in that. All right, so the Moors were the Turks, right? The original Turks or Arabs were Moors, or known as the Ethiopians. All right, you can go to Yemen right now, and you will find Kushite brothers and sisters living in Saudi Arabia, and the same Kushite bloodline exists in Turkey to this very day, as well as in Iran, Iraq, you know, Kuwait, all throughout the European country. But they're suppressed just like we've been here, and well as most so-called blacks have been around the world. This is something in which that they have done purposely, because they know within our genetic bloodline will rise Sobek, which is the Mashiach, Amashi, which is the Messiah. And they fear the rise of the Black Messiah, who can electrify and unify the masses. This is what they fear. All right, so these are the connections with the Turks. All right, and once again, you can get the book I made mention of. Let me go back to it. Let me see. Here it is. The Moorish Empire. You get Moorish Empire by Budget Mekin. All right. In the book, he goes into the Turkish, who he referred to as the Moors. He refers to the Turks as the Moors. Okay. So you can get that book. Matter of fact, just get any book in which that I've gone over. All of them are going to say the same thing. But this is how all this information ties together. Get the golden age of the Moors.
All right. Reality said he meant to say Mormons instead of morons. Mormons.
Oh yeah, yeah. We got you. We know what you meant. Yeah. We know what you meant. Yeah, we don't get upset at slips.
Let me see. Marginal said you guys are huge eye openers.
Appreciate that. We're trying to open eyes. You know what I mean? Open them eyes. Exactly.
They said, I love y'all.
Word. We love you too. Appreciate you. Thank you.
YouTube said wonderful images. YouTube LLC. He said wonderful images.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. Much respect.
Demonic war. She said thank you, brother.
Peace.
Was it the tribes that built most of the megalithics around the world?
They're the ones who built that we know for sure They're the ones who built what we now refer to as Humphrey Higgins referred to them. He called them the Aborigine inhabitants of Britain. So they're the ones in which that built the temples, you know. And so he states this specifically, you know, what we call Stonehenge. These were the Celtic Druids, with the Twa people, who is Cushite. The Cushites come from the Twa, one and the same people. Okay.
Self said Thanos is the Avengers. Is that modeled after the Olmec head?
Yes, it is. Thanos is right. Thanos is definitely after the Olmec head, no doubt about that. No doubt about that.
Okay, and then last question. Ben Jonson was another highly regarded Moor. He designed, oh, this is a comment. So we'll do a question after this. He designed a mask for the royal dancers upon the request of Queen Anne so that they could look like themselves, Black or Moor. A masquerade dance.
Right.
They are formerly called the Elamites.
Yeah, the Elamites, yeah. Indeed.
Okay, so Saladin Melanin said you are the only person that goes in about the tribe. I would like to learn more.
The reason why, because they are the oldest people on the face of the planet from the information that we've been able to gather. So that means that they are the original gods on the planet and that we are their descendants. All right. So we have to go in about it because we know for sure that they've been on the planet over 30 million years. When they claim that the so-called Homo sapiens, sapien, just came about, 300,000 years ago. So we know that there's something strange about, about their time spans here. Something very strange about that, their time span.
Continuing now.
All right, here we go. Yep, continuing now. Let me pull it up here. All right, for everybody can say it. All right, this is the mantra here. Continuing now for days, weeks, months, and years to come. We're moving towards our most cherished goals of health, wealth, and knowledge of ourselves. Our lives is becoming richer with joy, happiness, protection, security, and full contentment. I'm experiencing more and more joy, much more frequently. I am successful and I have an overabundance of good fortune, and I'm able to share and help those who are sincere along the way. And every action, enterprise, and endeavor in which we wish to be involved is bringing increasing rewards. I know that's not there, but it's all right. And I'm moving closer towards the oneness of God and Goddess and the full release of my inner higher self. I share. All right, all right.
Nymare Xi Kituwah I hope I'm doing this right. Thank you, King and Queen. You did it just fine. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. No
Not
doubt.
Not just taking, but giving and taking.
All right,
that's
all right.
That's how we're going to build.
Yeah,
we make sure that European got his and hers because they don't let us slip. So it's a balance, family. How we gonna build if we don't get it from y'all? Because I already know who give it to us, our people.
And we talking about really build.
Yeah, really build.
Yeah, really.
We appreciate y'all too. Okay. And we'll see y'all tomorrow.
All right, y'all. We out. Peace.
Let's put some love in the room. Because we got to leave off on some love.